Good afternoon, everybody. I do it without the mic, okay? Because I have a strong voice. No problem. If I'm too noisy, let me know. Okay. And thanks for taking at least 2 seats in the first row. My name is Wolfgang. I was born and raised in Bavaria, not in Munich, a little bit outside. I'm a village guy, I'm a mountain guy. I grew up in peace and harmony with nature, which was still possible at that time. And now, about 55 years later, I'm standing here again in front of you here in Portland, Oregon. I was shocked when you told me, Diane, where is Diane now? When you told me that it was 2013. Is it 9 years?
Yes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, yesterday I saw her. I said, "You look the same. You look the same like 9 years ago." And then I realized when you age together, you know, people always look the same. That's really cool, you know. So think about that. Anyway, I'm already 28 years in this kind of business consecutively. Looking back, I can truly say that I'm probably the pioneer when it comes to this technology, because I was the first introducing that to the public in Europe, in Germany, in Switzerland, and in Austria already in the year 1997 or 98, because that was the time when those first units were available for home users. By the way, I do the whole presentation in English, okay? So you will not have the same experience than Diane when she visited Hermina and opened her closet, okay? and from that day, I mean, Hermina was quite responsible for bringing me over to North America, together with another person. She's not amongst us anymore, Ellie. She passed away.
She was in Canada with the skin dream.
Exactly, she started in Canada, and Hermina was literally pushing me and saying, "You need to tell this to the Americans because they don't know about that." And so it happened that we came here. We did our first certification in the beautiful city of Ramona, which you probably never heard of it, or maybe the horse people do, because it's a huge horse community in South California. And so we did the first certification course there. It was 2005, and since then, we are informing and educating North American people out of our Canadian and US office. In the meantime, we have the 8th generation of our units. I always try to be ahead of competition. I always try to think outside the box, just in order to be always the first. And we also owe that to our about 2.5 million clients worldwide, because we also have businesses in Asia, all over Europe, and in the meantime, since 2 years, also in Australia and New Zealand. So the word is spreading about PEMF. Over the time of the last almost 3 decades, we created a lot of awareness and acknowledgement. And as you know, the healthcare systems are also changing and struggling. You know, what unites us is the last 2.5 years, because we have the same problem. By the way, today, masks are still allowed. Airplane mode is mandatory. I'll tell you later on why. Because it's not good for us, okay? But like I said, if you wish to wear a mask, you know it's not mandatory anymore. Air Canada, on the 29th of September, we were flying here. It was still mandatory. And 2 days later, when we were flying from Toronto to Vancouver, it was not mandatory anymore. So it's really funny, you know. But only in the plane. When you wait at the gate with 400 people, you don't have to wear it. But when when the announcement comes and you get up off your chair towards the plane, you have to wear it immediately. That's where the politics and the healthcare systems brought us, you know, with the COVID pandemic. Anyway, this is not the topic today, because I think we all have enough of it, right? We just hope that you made it safely through that. we both had COVID. We are still here. It was a 6-day journey. It was not pleasant, but it was okay. But I think, you know, it's an individual thing. And I just pray all the time that we made it through, and it will not come back, because, like Diane said, the biggest problem for us with the whole pandemic was really, you know, to keep our business going, because we have high-tech products, a lot of suppliers involved and stuff and that. And it's tough, and it's still tough, and it will be still tough for the next couple of years, especially when you deal with electronics. I mean, everybody somehow figured it out that it's not like it was before anymore, you know. However, and then the magic question always comes up: how does a guy from Bavaria end up making all these products all over the world, and you know, and teaching about something which is mostly unknown, which is, but in the same time, you all know it, but maybe from different angles, which I will present you later on a little bit. However, you know, how I ended up with PEMF, and I will make a long story short, because it was a long story, but I was a professional athlete before, in my first life, before I did that, and I got diagnosed with cancer when I was 26. I was diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at a quite bad stage. So statistically, I was 70% dead, but I was still 30% alive. That's what was told to me when I went to the doctor after they did surgery on me. They took off a tumor and they sent it to the pathologist, and they brought back the result. I was sitting there with my mom, I will never forget that, and the doctor said, "You have cancer." And my first question was, how long? It's really funny, you know, I was 26. And the doctor said, "It doesn't look so good." That's what I remember. The rest I don't remember what the particular talk was. But that's quite a message, especially when you are so young. I felt fit, I didn't feel anything. The only thing what I felt, there was something here in my hip which bothered me. It was not even painful, you know. So I went to the doctor, they did an ultrasound, and they said there had to be a surgery immediately. And they cut it off, and they took out a tumor the size of a fist, you know. And like I said, I didn't feel anything, you know. So it was quite strange. Long story short, 2 surgeries on me, 2 full stages of chemotherapy, and after 6 months, I lost about 95 pounds. I was literally definitely not the same person than before, because I was quite fit. I was an athlete. I was playing hockey at that time, and yeah, and the interesting thing, and maybe you can share that, you will share that experience with me. When you have cancer, or when you have a serious illness, and you went through all the protocols, classical medicine, they're gonna release you and they leave you alone. They don't give you a book or a USB stick with 50 recipes what you should do now in order to protect yourself. It's just, you know, the protocol is finished, and good luck. Come back in 3 months. We gotta do your blood work. If the blood work doesn't look good, we have a protocol for that. We do this and that and that and that. So that's how it works nowadays, right? But what they don't think about is, how do you feel when you go out? How do you deal with such a message? How do you deal with being afraid on a constant basis that this beast will come back? That's how I named it at that time. This beast. It was a beast for me, you know. And you have to find your own pathway, your own routine to deal with this. This is what I figured out, because literally nobody helps you. What's funny is, you know, the word spread it at that time. Wolfie has cancer, and then you go out of the hospital. You go back to society, obviously not looking the same like before, Everybody tells you, hey, it's gonna be okay, you know all that stuff. They in a good meaning. And then these group of peoples, they come to you and say, hey, I have something for you. You should try this. Drink this, eat this. I give you a phone number. Go to this doctor. Go to this specialist. I know somebody out of the classical medical field. Costs a fortune, but helped so many people. You know? So you get all these the good meaning, but you're exposed to all that kind of hints and tips and what you should do, and you're totally overwhelmed because you're lacking of education. You cannot evaluate this information. If somebody comes to you and says, I have a nutrition, this works to detox or whatsoever because you had chemo, how do you know that if you're not educated in that? You either believe it, and then you swallow it. And I just know if I would swallow everything what people told me to do and drink everything, I would probably not be alive anymore. Or I would have nothing to do 24/7, nothing else, because I have no time, So for me, the so-called aha effect was, in order to understand what people want to provide me, I need to start educating myself. And that's what I did. And I figured out, for me that worked, because I was starting interest in my disease. Asking question, where could that come from? I still don't have an answer till today, because I told you I really grew up in a very, very nice environment, not exposed to anything super unnatural. I was very fit, I was active, eating healthy, that was still possible at that time, and so I have no answer on that question, where the cancer finally came from, but I figured out, for me it helped me to deal with the situation afterwards, to create interest, to get to know more about the disease I have, to get to know more about what possibilities I have personally to become proactive, to just keep myself calm and positive. And you have these two groups. You have the first group of these people like me. They deal with it. They create interest, and the other group they pull everything away from them. And I don't know what's the best way. For me, the way to really ask questions, to create interest, that it worked for me. If I look back, and why it also worked for me, because this led me to a lot of visits at conferences, a lot of visits at libraries. Auntie Google was not there at that time. So you could not simply take your smartphone and ask questions and get 500,000 hits on that question, And people still think that, if they search something on Google and they get a result, that this is the truth. Which is ridiculous, because everything you find on Google is uploaded by us. It's our opinion. Tomorrow I will go on a tour with Veronica. We take in the car and go the 101 Pacific Coast down to San Francisco. So when you Google what places you should visit, it's so funny, you read 5 or 6 search results, and you should literally stop every 5 minutes because you get different opinions, which makes sense, because everybody has a different perspective of sightseeing, of whatever. It's the same with the reviews about hotels, It's all subjective impression. So what I want to tell you, if you want to educate about yourself about health and illness, or illness and health, then you should look for good, reliable sources. Makes sense, right? At that time, libraries, good books about. At that time, energy medicine started evolving, not only for diagnostics, but also for therapeutic applications. And And then I visited lectures like you do today on this afternoon. By the way, it's beautiful. I brought the weather to you, you know, to make you really feel bad sitting here with me and listening to me. Sorry for that, but I took a long way. I think I deserve that, right? So, and then I, like I said, conferences. You know, there was a lot going on, and one of these conferences, there was a speaker, and he was introducing PEMF technology. Because it was, like I mentioned already, it was the time when those first units appeared on the market for home use. And this was a 1-hour speech, and I listened to it, and I have to tell you, when I went out of the hospital, the biggest problem I developed insomnia. So I was already under the carpet with my energy level because I lost so much weight and I was so weak, and then you cannot sleep anymore. Not a very pleasant combination. And I have to share with you, I had days I didn't want to stay alive anymore because there was no reason for me. I didn't feel myself anymore, you know? And this guy, I remembered one thing, what triggered me. And he said, I'm going to introduce to you today the sleeping machine. And I said, oh, that's what I need, you know, right now, because I was, you know. And so he did a quite interesting speech, 1 hour, and everything he told me made total sense to me. And it was exactly what I wanted to hear at that time. So I really, after that lecture, I said, I want to get one of these units. Because I want to get rid of my insomnia. I still have the motivation to become healthy again, because I was 26, almost 27, and that's not a good time to leave this planet, you know. So I started using it, and the first 2-3 weeks nothing happened. I was already becoming really nervous because I wanted to get results. And after 4 weeks, then it kicked in, and I had my first night sleeping through for 12 or 13 hours like a baby. And the cool part of it was when I woke up on the next day, I felt for the first time after such a long period that my body was able to regenerate. That my body was able to respond to something and take action and give me a positive feeling about it. I didn't have that. You know, whatever I ate from all that stuff, what people told me, or drink, this was exactly what I needed. And it was so impressive for me because I kept improving day by day. I used it on a daily basis. And after 3 months, I was energetically and speaking about my spirit, I was almost the same person than before. Obviously not physically, because I was still lacking substance. But I started eating again, and also started to just to feel excitement and passion for life again. You know, and we always say, I got a better energy. I got my good energy back. You know, and I'm pretty much known for having a lot of energy, even speaking without a microphone. And that how, you know, this whole experience, this very, very personal experience, it was not related to what was in the books, what the clinical studies showed me whatsoever. It was a 100% personal experience that gave me so much faith and so much passion to really dive into that world of energy medicine, in particular pulse electromagnetic fields, because this is what I personally experienced. Like Mary said, you know, she can work again with her hands. Like the testimonial, thank you very much, by the way, but by the way, those are the stories that keep me going within the business, you know? Because when you hear that from all over the world, these hundreds and thousands of feedbacks from people, you gave me my life back until I can work again, which I couldn't do before. This is the real value of what I'm doing and why I'm still doing what I'm doing, you know. And also try to improve our system and to make it even more efficient, you know. But yeah, that's how I got. That's my story. How I got introduced to energy medicine and in particular to pulse electromagnetic fields, and from that, and I have a marketing degree. I'm not into medicine. I had a quite strict education because I was still in the. In Germany, it's called Gymnasium, which is the college here in the US, which was run by nuns. So, you know, 100% Catholic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You also had this experience. Yeah.
Catholic school.
Yeah. 8 years of Latin, which I'm very thankful now. I didn't understand at that time what I should do with this language. But you know, later on with medicine, it's just a perfect thing to have it, because when I was reading a book, it was not a white page for me. I could at least understand a lot already. And the only thing what bothered me, when I looked at my unit, it looked really shady and cheap. And it was not cheap at that time. You know, if I compare it, it was about 1.5 times more expensive than nowadays. If we compare, you know, all kinds of properties which are involved to calculate value, but it was just a square box, a mat connected with one cable, and you could change the intensity from 1 to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No timer. You turn it on, click button, and when you think it's over, you turn it off. The guy told me, turn it on for 10 minutes or 8 minutes, turn it off. Do that in the morning, midday when you are at home, and do it in the evening. You do 24 minutes, he said, because that will improve your sleep. That was the protocol, because people always ask for the superhero protocol, which we talk later. The superhero protocol doesn't exist when you use energy medicine, because we are all individuals and we all react differently on energy, you know. There are people, they like rock music, like AC/DC, and there are people, they like more the calming, wellness music, you know. Neither nor are good and bad, but it's just the way it is, you know, because individuals are individuals and they react differently. And we have the same in energy medicine. Not every person reacts with the same protocol, you know, with the same response. But we will go into that a little later. So, yeah, and then I started, I said, I need to make a business out of that, because it's so interesting for me. And but I said, I have no clue about physics, I have no clue about electronics, but what I had this vision how this first unit should look. Just to make it more sellable and presentable. Because if you want to make a business and if you want to sell a product, you need to love your product, and you need to like to unpack it and show it to everybody. The unit I had, I didn't want to do that. You know, so and that's how I ended up finding the right people. I found 2 engineers. I found an electronic manufacturing company in Germany, and that was in the year 1998 when we start first producing the first unit. If I look back, the unit looks horrible. It's, you know, we call it the kidney bowl. Horrible.
Reliable.
But it was reliable at that time. At that time it was top notch from the design, and yeah, and that's how it started. And since then, I got stuck in this whole thing in a good meaning. And looking back, I can faithfully share with you that this cancer was the greatest gift of my life. Because if I would not suffer from this, if I wouldn't have gone through all this, obviously being lucky coming out cancer-free since then, you know, but I would never be able to travel the world. to share my my wisdom, my experiences, and also in the meantime my acquired knowledge with you, and in the same time helping so many people. I mean, this is the greatest gift you can get on this planet, no matter where you are. If you have something and you know 10% that if you hand this over to somebody, then it will help this person. And this is something I'm really, really grateful, and that keeps me going, and that brought me here today as well, you know. So, when we get introduced to something, especially from the medical field, I always hear this. Do you have any studies about this? Show me the studies, you know. Fact is, and reality is, that we live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, we know that, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology, because if I would provide you a clinical study with PEMF, for example, for, I don't know, fibromyalgia, I bet that if you are not working in the medical profession, that you will not be able to understand one sentence in this study. Because those studies are mostly 27 to 150 pages with a lot of graphs, with a lot of Latin words. And actually nobody, if you don't have a specific education, you won't understand it. But we are educated, you know, I need proof. Makes no sense, you know. I always tell the people, you know what you do? Print out the study, put it on the floor in your living room, and lie on it. I give you the protocol. 8 minutes in the morning, 8 minutes midday, it's 24 minutes, you know, that you feel more comfortable in the evening. And then let me know after 4 weeks if you improve your health with it, you know. And then they look at me and say, you're right, you know, because we don't know what double blind is. You know what double blind is? I tell you, when neither the doctor nor the patient know anything about what they are doing. No, it's not double blind. This is reality, but it's not double blind. No, double blind means, I just tell you this, because at least when you know about what is double blind, what is placebo controlled, what does in vitro mean, what does in vivo mean, then at least the next study you ask, you can at least read and understand the headline. You know, because a clinical study, you know, usually if it's a valuable study, has to be a double-blind, placebo-controlled, either in vitro or in vivo clinical study. And double-blind means, double-blind placebo-controlled means, if we reflect it on, for example, in our systems, when you do a study with PEMF and you do placebo-controlled double-blind, that means you have 10 systems. From that 10 systems, 5 systems, they look like they are work, but there is nothing coming out. This is the placebo. And double-blind means that neither the doctor or the person who operates the machines during a study, nor the patient knows on which one is which one. You know? And why do we do this in a clinical study? Because we improve the liability of such a study, because there is no subjective intervention involved. And that increases the quality of a clinical study. So that's what it means, placebo-controlled double-blind. You know, and in vitro and in vivo is quite simple. In vivo is when we do the study at a living person, at a human organism, and in vitro means we do it in the laboratory, in the glass, with bacteria, with tissue which we breed in the laboratory and expose it with pulsed electromagnetic fields. So that's just a little education about studies. There are about 12,000 studies with PEMF, with all kinds of conditions, you know. And the next question I receive is, well, but why does the classical medical community and all the hospitals not use this? Well, first of all, it's not that nobody uses it. I will show you later on some applications where magnetic resonance is involved, but the main reason why specifically this technology is not widely used in the classical medical field is because the classical medical field is not educated about it. Energy medicine is not part of the faculty when you study to become a medical doctor. You know, my simplest example is always ask your cardiologist why there is no heart cancer in the world. It doesn't exist. Did you ever hear somebody suffering from cancer of the heart? Isn't that interesting? Do you know why?
It's electrical. It's
energy. It's beating all the time. It's working 24/7, constantly. Highest level. Otherwise, exitus. It's Latin, means game over. You know? Those heart cells are not allowed to turn into something malignant because they are our engines. They keep us alive. You know? And interestingly, depends on which evolution theory you believe in, something or somebody gave us this gift that our heart is protected from cancer. And you can do whatever you want bad with a heart, it will never turn into a cancerous situation. And the answer is energy. And the cardiologist is, I didn't know about that. You know? So the electromagnetic potential of the heart is so extremely good and powerful that those cells, they cannot change into something different because they are really focused on doing the job 24/7 because your heart is beating from the first to the last day of your life. You know? And that should tell us something. And people out of energy medicine, they understand that. You know? But in the classical medical field, it's just the only reason is lack of education. You know? And we can see it because more and more medical doctors and people from the healthcare field, they open themselves to learn about that because they see the benefits, they see the efficiency, they see the possibility. Pain is number one cause of expenses in the healthcare systems worldwide. And pain is not even a disease, it's a symptom. You know, pain is a signal from the body that tells you something is wrong with you. You should go and check. You know, but we suffer from a symptom 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, everybody knows people suffering from chronic pain. You know, and then you take all these medications, these painkillers and whatsoever. What do? They put a hammer on the symptom for a limited time. And then it comes back. Instead of, you know, finding the roots, the cause of it, and eliminate that, and then the pain, the symptom, the signal will automatically go away. Right? And PEMF is the number one treatment out of energy medicine for pain management, for pain relief. And the next good message is it does not even cause any side effect. How good is that? Yeah, not good for the pharmaceutical industry. Because their approach is different. They invented the side effects because that keeps you sick and you need another medication. You know? And they figured out very quickly we cannot make money with healthy people and with dead people. So we have to keep them in between. That's what it is, you know? And that's what happens, you know? right now, if you look at the world population, I would say 80% of the entire world population is not healthy. But it is also not sick enough to die. So they are exactly within that range, right? So as long as the business is kept in that range, perfect. Because we can, continue to supply medication for that symptom, and then another symptom pops up because of a side effect, but we have something for that and give it to you, and so on and so on. And you can skip lunch because you have already 50 drops on your plate, and you are not hungry after swallowing all of that. That's reality right now. And beside the situation that it doesn't make us healthy, it costs a load of money, which we pay somehow. So that's where we live in. But let's talk a little bit about electromagnetic, because like I said, the technology and the medical and technology background of it, and also how these systems work, which we developed based on that one I saw almost 30 years ago. They are containing of the word electromagnetic. And I would suggest that usually lay people, when they hear electromagnetic, they think about electricity and magnetism. That's why we always get the question, how many magnets are in this applicator? Well, I can share with you there's not one magnet in this applicator, because magnets have nothing to do with electromagnetism. It's something different, The so-called electromagnetic spectrum is a term which we know from physics, and it is not only electricity and magnetism involved. If we talk about Wi-Fi technologies, high-frequency technologies, microwaves, gamma rays, X-rays, visible light is electromagnetism. Because visible light is a small spectrum out of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, a very tiny one. And usually there is not necessarily electricity or magnetism involved, but we speak about electromagnetism. UV light, radar, UHF, we know that, and VHF from our favorite radio station, 101.5, 102.7, whatsoever. So you have to tune into the right frequency in order to hear what you want to hear. So you have to search for the correct frequency. This is something you should remember now, because this kind of message we need exactly maybe 10-15 minutes to understand what PEMF technology does for you and how does it work. Why do we react on this? That has to do with frequency. And then let's have a look. This is where we live right now. Our still blue planet. And over the millions of years, human beings and animals evolved with their environment. So, if you evolve with an environment around you, you need to go along very well, because otherwise you're not surviving. Makes sense, right? So, in order to do that, you need to adapt what's going on around you. You need to acclimatize. You need to, even sometimes you need to run away from things, not to put your life in danger. That's all kind of things which is involved with evolving, with evolution. But from an energetic perspective, if you look with which kind of information we are surrounded, and information is frequency, because every information is based on frequency. It's physics, Then we find already even some numbers and some measurable values. For example, most of us don't know that we are surrounded by an electromagnetic field. And this is the electromagnetic field of the Earth, which was always there. By the way, meanwhile, 24/7 observed by high-tech laboratories around the world. So this is also something you can find on Google. You know, if you search for electromagnetic field of the Earth laboratories, you will find a lot of information. And you will figure out, I didn't know that there are specific venues funded by governments taking a 24/7 look how the electromagnetic field of the Earth is developing over the days, over the years, whether it's fluctuating. We have many, many graphs, you can find that. The reason for that is very simple, because it's an essential force for us to thrive and survive. And we know that since the 60s, when the Russians were the first to send the cosmonauts to the stratosphere, which is here. We have here the surface of our planet, and between the surface of our planet and the exit to the stratosphere, there is a space which we know as ionosphere. When we leave the ionosphere and heading towards the stratosphere, this is an environment which we cannot survive anymore, because there is no gravity and there is no oxygen. And there is no exposure of the Earth magnetic field anymore. And it happened when the cosmonauts came back. I think Gagarin was the first. They had to lift him out of the capsule, and because he was so weak, you know. And they examined him, and they figured out that within that short period of time, he even started suffering from osteoporosis. So he lost bone density, and later on, with more investigation, they figured out that this was because of lack of electromagnetic field. Because the Earth magnetic field, just in between, let's speak medical, creates, when we walk over it, creates a so-called piezoelectric effect. What it is, it's very simple. You have your bones, and they are made of bone cells. They are called osteoblasts. When you walk over the Earth magnetic field, you change the static field of the Earth magnetic field into an impulse. And by walking, you know, you create friction on your bones. With this friction, with expanding and compressing your bone structure, you expand and compress your osteoblasts. And with the help of the electromagnetic field, you support the division of those osteoblasts. That's why, for example, when people are when they cannot walk anymore, or when they need to lie in bed because of other diseases, they also develop osteoporosis, because they cannot perform this piezoelectric effect anymore. Yeah, you not compress and expand your bone structure anymore, and then you don't develop and produce new osteoblasts. That's why it's always important for people suffering from all kinds of bone diseases that you keep them mobile, or if they can't do that anymore, put them on a PEMF device, because the PEMF device mimics this piezoelectric effect. You know, the same accounts for wound healing, bed sores, and in Latin we call it decubitus. You know, if people have to lie in bed too long at the same spot, they create lesions and they destroy their cellular structure, and if they cannot move anymore, there is no membrane potential anymore in the cells to divide. So the wound doesn't close. If you apply a PEMF system with a certain applicator, you can mimic that, and you can initiate the wound healing again. By the way, it's medically approved for that. So it works like a piece of cake. And the reason for it is because we need a certain portion and a certain amount of magnetic fields around us in order to initiate and maintain those metabolic processes. Without it, will not work. And we even have this space here. It's called ionosphere. There was a German guy, Schumann, physicist, and he figured out that exactly within that space there is a quite stable frequency vibrating all the time. 7.8 hertz. Maybe you heard about that, the Schumann resonances or the Schumann waves. Very famous, Google it. I allow you. Because there is valuable information about that. And it looks like we go along very well with these kind of frequencies, because otherwise we would not survive. And we would not be able to keep ourselves healthy, right? So, if you look at these numbers, the Earth magnetic field, by the way, has a carrier frequency between 11.75 and 11.79 hertz, which is very low. The Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz, which is very low. By the way, 1 hertz is 1 cycle per second. So 7.83 hertz means the ionosphere vibrates around us with 7.83 cycles per second. The Earth magnetic field vibrates between 11.75 and 11.79 cycles per second. Why is it a range? Because it's not everywhere the same on our planet. You know, it depends a little bit on the geographic location, and also whether these places are a little bit further away from the equators towards the magnetic north and south pole. So I'm sure in Oregon we have a different Earth magnetic field structure in terms of the carrier frequency and the intensity, comparing, for example, to Switzerland where we live. But, and that's the cool thing is, the range is very narrow. So it's not like between 10 and 500 hertz. No, it's between 11.75 and 11.79. It's a very, very narrow margin. So we can definitely suggest that the Earth magnetic field needs to be within a certain limit in order to provide the correct energy for us to initiate and maintain our metabolic processes. And now look, your smartphone. It has also a carrier frequency between 800 and 1900 megahertz. You know how much 1 megahertz is? A lot. 1 megahertz is 1 million hertz, is 1 million cycles per second. So when you have your smartphone on your ear, the exposure of the vibration out of your smartphone towards the provider and back, because they need to be connected, otherwise you cannot talk to somebody, you know? Because what you do here is, when I call you on the phone, you know, I want to speak to you. In order to do that, I need to have the number, and then I need to speak. While I speak, everything what I speak from my language will be bundled in a frequency, sent to you. Your phone understands that, opens it, and makes it available through the speaker or the earphone. That's how it works. So there must be a frequency transfer. And this frequency transfer, because so many people call already on our planet, is very high, between 800 and 1900 million hertz per second. Did you ever figure that out, what happens when you have your smartphone on the ear and you use it for 15, 20, 30 minutes to talk with your best friend about what happened yesterday evening? What happens to you?
Well, it gets hot.
It gets hot, you know? And I can tell you the reason why it gets hot is because those frequencies, they are so high, they induce a lot of thermal energy. And they literally heat up your tissue. And that's why you feel the heat, you know? And this is not good. If this happens on an ongoing basis, your cellular structure around the ear, which is supposedly the brain, because with most animals and human beings I know, the ear is mostly on the left and on the right side of the head, and in between is your brain, the brain cells. So if you use your smartphone on the ear extensively, you are on a very high risk to probably create cancerous environment, which then leads to brain cancer. And it's proven nowadays, you know. And that's why when you use a smartphone, that people say, yeah, but I have these AirPods. Even better, the AirPods work with Bluetooth, 2.4 gigahertz. You know how much a gigahertz is? It's 1,000 megahertz. Horsepower. So the frequency is even more dramatic when it comes to go away from the pretty low frequency natural spectrum, you know. And I don't know how our children will make it through, because they grow up with this. For them it's part of life, not only of lifestyle, but it's also part of the school already. They learn with the iPads and everything, you know. I just, you know, ask the parents, you know, because we cannot run from this anymore, but to really educate them to use it in a decent way, which also means there are many hours during the week where they should not use it, and where they should go out and climb the trees again, as we did. Because remember, that's good for the osteoblasts. Huh? You tell your child, go out and go for the piezoelectric effect. You know, because that will keep your bones healthy. You know, and that's why we should not stop living when people tell us that we are 65 and use our pension. You know, because you know that's the pension and the retirement is a social invention. It is an invention by society, because it equally tells you, now I don't have to work anymore, and I still receive money which I paid before. Not that what you invested, but at least a little bit of it, which you cannot survive from, and now you need to go to work again, which is good for your health, because you again create the piezoelectric effect. No, but you know what I mean. You know, don't stop living when somebody tells you that you are on retirement now, because when you stop moving, when you stop exercising, you start deteriorating, because our entire organism is made for movement, is made for being active, is made for walking 15 to 20 miles per day. That's why we have these strong muscles here, you know? And it would be the biggest mistake ever to stop activities, no matter which age, if it's 65, 75. Keep going, because I promise you, you will live longer, and you will live longer healthier. And I think this is why we are here, because that's what we want to do. We have a very limited time on this planet, right? So, what we learn from this slide is very simple. Low frequencies, very low frequencies within a natural, in a natural range of the Earth magnetic field are seen to be good for us. But the artificial high frequencies, they are not, because they are an invention of our society. And before the invention of electricity, Nikola Tesla, 120 years ago, there were no artificial frequencies on this planet. Not at all. Everything came with electricity. You know, so it's us, it's our generation, and the generation of our parents who were firstly introduced to artificial frequencies. Before, at least what we know, it didn't exist. Those people before that 2 generations, they lived in harmony with their environment. You know, they had other problems, but which we have now under control. That's why we become older. You know that we become much older now than the generations before. But it doesn't mean that our life quality became better. Because you can easily become 90 years old and being sick for 60 years. That's only nowadays possible because we have the technologies and the medications for that. You know, but our goal should be that we live our life to the fullest with the maximum possibility of being healthy as long as possible. I think that's fair enough to ask for that, right? So, and that's why when you use, now comes the always with a practical advice for you. When you use your mobile phone on your nightstand as an alarm clock, fine, but put it on flight mode. Because if you don't do it, it is sending and receiving constantly the whole night with very high frequencies. And usually,
It still will do the alarm.
it still will do the alarm when you go on flight mode, absolutely. And it is not far from your brain, you know? And it's not natural. As simple as it is. One click can save you from a high possibility of developing a brain cancer. It's worth to do that click. You know, usually human beings, they work like this. If they do something 10 times, then it becomes a routine. So the first 9 times, it's probably, you have to alert yourself, say, I have to do it. Once it's part of the routine, you'll do it anyway. Like brushing your teeth. You know? Do it. And turn it off. You don't expect a call at 2 o'clock in the morning. You sleep anyway. Or not. Huh? So turn it off, and you can still set your alarm clock. It will work, even on flight mode. Because you are in a much healthier environment, which gives you a more pleasant, more deep sleep, and which gives your body time to regenerate. You know, and that's small things, very important, because you do that wrong on a consistent basis. And in energy medicine, I tell you faithfully, energy medicine works only if you practice it consistently. It's not about the intensity, it's about the consistency. And that's why all these protocols with high intensities, they are not so crucial. You know? There are these I always call them the blue people. You know, we have brain people, blue, red, and green. The blue people are very rational, you know, and they would say, well, if I do that 24 hours, expose myself with PEMF, and then maybe I don't have to do it for another week until I do it again. That's more efficient because I have only to think about that for one event per week, you know. And now you tell me how your dining room here would look like when you brush your teeth every Saturday for 2.5 hours instead of doing it on a daily basis 2 times for 2 minutes. You know, rationally, you probably, you know, invest the same time, but with totally different results. You know, and whether we are doing things wrong or whether we are doing things right, we have to learn that we have to do it on a consistent basis. And then it either hurts or it creates a very, very beneficial effect and result. And this is something which I would like to share with you, which is important, you know, in every aspect of life. You know, make your wife little presents, little compliments every day. And not only 1 time for Christmas. That will help for the relationship. You know, and you can transfer that to every other aspect I think you know what I'm talking about. So, how does this technology work? And now we're getting a little physical, because it's so simple. I know we all have a basic education about physics, and we know Ampere's law. Maybe at least we heard about that. You know, and Ampere's law is very simple. It says when you run current through a wire, it will always create a magnetic field around it. That's Ampere's law, number one. And Ampere's law number two is, it's exactly the opposite. Every magnetic field can induce electricity. And to refresh your knowledge from school, you have all plus minus a smartphone. And every smartphone is equipped with a lithium-ion battery, right? So, in order to get your smartphone to run, you need to charge this battery. How does this work? It's very simple. The charge of a lithium-ion battery works with an applied magnetic field, which inside the battery there are ions. Those are little particles. And when they receive a magnetic field, it's like kicking their butts. Then they start moving within that lithium, and that creates an electric potential. And the lithium binds this electric potential and doesn't let it out until you request it. And that's how your lithium-ion battery works. You know? And believe it or not, our metabolism works pretty much the same. Because the chemical processes in our bodies, they are perfectly understood by classical medicine. You know, they know exactly, I have a headache, I need an ibuprofen, because when I take an ibuprofen, I have a receptor somewhere, it does recognize it, it takes it, and it inhibits the pain for a certain time, until the chemistry is out, and then the pain comes back. So, let's go over it. And in our organism, we need electromagnetic fields in order to induce and to maintain certain processes. You know, in about 5 minutes, I will exactly explain you what happens when you lie on that, and that happens to all of us. The good thing about energy medicine and frequency, it doesn't need a specific language. Wenn ich jetzt Deutsch spreche, haben wir ein Problem. Pamina versteht mich noch, der Max versteht mich noch und die Veronika. I changed my frequency to German. That's what I did right now. And everybody's like, you know, I say the same thing in a different language, in a different frequency, and if you are not educated, not capable of understanding that frequency, you cannot take it and deal with it. So, in order to utilize energy medicine for the health of yourself and your organism, you have to make sure that your body understands the language. Because otherwise, there will be no reaction, like yours, or only, I don't know what this guy is talking about. Huh? So, this is something you have to learn from energy medicine. If you want to benefit from energy medicine, apply a language which the body understands energetically. If not, forget it, waste of time. You know? And believe it or not, you can sit for 2 hours on your smartphone if you suffer from back pain here, and you can hold it here. You know, even if it emits an electromagnetic field, it will not create any benefit because it talks the wrong language. You know, there is an electromagnetic field coming out, but the body says, sorry, but I don't understand that. You know, das ist Deutsch für mich, that's German for me. Yeah? And that's why this is so crucial, and like I said, I will go into this. But what I wanted to show you is that, because remember at the beginning of the talk I was speaking about there are already a lot of electromagnetic applications used in classical medicine. And we know them. MRI, for example, magnetic resonance imaging. Whoever had to do a procedure in an MRI? You were inside? So usually what they do, they set you up, and then they are all going out of the room. They go in a separate room, they lock that room, and they talk to you via radio. It's not because they are afraid of you or whatsoever. The problem is those MRIs, they create quite high magnetic flux densities, intensity levels. And we talk about 100,000 times stronger than the Earth magnetic field. It's quite a number, you know. And then they make horrible noise, huh? Ding, 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 ding. And the whole examination doesn't take long because they need you to get out of this, because otherwise you would be well done and not medium, you know. And you know, but the technology is based on electromagnetic fields, you know, just with a different language, with a different frequency, and with a different intensity, and not with the intention to create a health benefit, but with the intention to get a picture out of you, which is helpful for diagnostics. You know, this is one of the applications how electromagnetic fields are being used in classical medicine. The next one is something quite new and something quite remarkable, because this is approved by the FDA just a couple of years ago. It's called RTMS, Repetitive Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation. This is a handheld device which also creates a huge intensity, similar to the one of an MRI, 5 to 7 Tesla, with a very high frequency. But it shows tremendously good results with people suffering from depression. Really good results. And it's a non-invasive treatment with no side effects if applied properly. Because you need to have really good trained staff in order to apply that, because the applied intensities and frequencies are very high. So you could harm the tissue if it wouldn't be applied in a proper way. But it's coming more and more into place. They now even do studies with Parkinson patients to reduce or even eliminate the tremors with this kind of technology. And I'm sure it's going to work. You just have to find the right frequencies. You have to find the right language to address it to the responsible segment and part of the brain structure. And then you have the so-called magnetic resonance stimulation treatments, and this is what we do. You divide this field into two device groups. It's the high-intensity devices, which I would not use because, like I said, it's similar to RTMS. They belong into the hands of very skilled people. And in the US, for example, you can buy a high-intensity device for $25,000–30,000 US, and you can use it at home. Those units are all not approved, not even according to electrical safety. And you can harm yourself if you don't use that properly, because the applied field intensities are way too high. So only for a limited time. So if you intend to undergo such a treatment, do it only at the doctor's office where people know what to do, but never buy such a unit. It's totally overpriced. That's number one, totally, because it's really a piece of crap equipment. I saw them all. And they are really totally overpriced, and they don't belong in the hands of lay people. And then you have the so-called low-pulsed, low-frequency devices. That's what we do. That's the holistic, gentle approach. which usually takes a little bit more time until the effects kick in, but at the same time, you don't create any side effects, and you don't create any adverse effects, you cannot harm, and you have more or less the more sustainable results. And this is the segment what we do. Those extremely low pulse PMFs in the pico and microtesla range, they are widely researched. I told you we have so much research, scientific research about specifically the devices which range within the electromagnetic field of the Earth when it comes to intensity and frequency. And those are the devices, they are released for home use because you cannot harm. They are also all certified in terms of electrical safety and electromagnetic compatibility, and they show the best results. Just as a summary for you quickly, this is where you have to look at when you would like to evaluate the efficiency and the benefit and the quality of a PMF device. Which carrier waveform is applied? So that means what is the concept of transferring the bundles of information from the applicator to your body? Ideally, what you want is, you don't want one information at a time, because that would take forever. Ideally, you would like to have a huge bundle of frequencies in the same time, packed and sent to your body, so that each cell of your body, no matter if it's the heart cell, the skin cell, the hair cell, the liver cell, whatever, is capable to react on it, to resonate with it, and take action, take over the action, and boost your entire metabolic processes. The same for the frequency. A high frequency will not do the job because they harm. Because they are out of the natural range. So look for a device which emits frequency ranges within the range of natural frequencies, because we are going along with those frequencies very well, and we resonate with those frequencies. And also when it comes to the intensity, to the volume, to the noise of the electromagnetic field which is applied. And we learned magnetic resonance imaging, 5 to 7 Tesla, no go, only for a limited period of time. Our system, for example, they emit a magnetic field flux density strength of between 0.5 and 70, maximum with local applicators 300 microtesla, which is within the range of the strength of the Earth magnetic field. So we react very pleasant on that, without any adverse effects, and with very fast benefits, because this is what our body understands. So this is a very important picture, because this tells you exactly what's going on when you lie on such a PMF device. Remember what I said from your lithium-ion battery. This is a human cell. By the way, all cells have all the same setup. They contain of a nucleus, this is the one here, and inside that nucleus there is a software, the so-called DNA. And this DNA tells the cell what to do, whether it's going to develop as a skin cell, as a heart cell, as a liver cell. That's all programmed in here. And then we have the cell membrane. This is this balloon here. The membrane, by the way, every cell membrane is permeable, so it lets things in and out. And that's what we need in order to initiate and maintain metabolism. And in between the nucleus and the membrane, there's obviously a lot of stuff, because a human cell is very, very, very complex. One of the main things floating around here are the so-called mitochondria. Maybe you heard about that. The mitochondria are the power plants of each human cell, which are capable of transforming fuel into energy. This is similar like an engine. You need to in an engine, a combustion engine, you need to supply fuel and oil, and then you need to supply ignition. And if this all comes together in a controlled way, the engine gives you a force of motion. You know, and here it's the same. The only difference is we don't get the fuel from Chevron or from all these nice companies where you can fill up your car. We get it from McDonald's, or better not, and all these companies. You know, we speak about the food that we eat and also drink. So we talk about solid and liquid food. All what we eat and drink is not to please our feeling that we are not hungry anymore. The main idea of supplying solid and liquid food is to supply each of your 70 trillion cells with fuel. Because that's what it needs. At least out of that fuel, the minerals, the nutrients, the vitamins, you know, and also the oxygen you breathe, to turn that within the mitochondria into energy. The energy has a name, it's called ATP. Has nothing to do with the tennis association. It's adenosine triphosphate. This is the stuff what we know as energy. And now you can imagine, the better the fuel, quality, the better the oxygen we breathe, the quality, the better the capability of the mitochondria to turn that into ATP. And the more ATP you contain of, the better your immune system will be, the better your metabolic processes will run, and so on and so on. Bottom line, when the cell is healthy, the body is healthy. You know? And now PEMF comes in place. Because beside of all that chemical processes, believe it or not, inside our body, there are millions and millions of these bubbles, and those are the ions. These little things, they move around and create a potential. Well, but only if they move around. That's why a human cell is always negatively charged inside and positively charged outside. Because these ions, they are running back and forth, inside, outside, all the time. If they get kicked all the time. And we kick those ions by either walk and move and exercise over the Earth's magnetic field, or if we can't do that, or if we don't want to do that, we can lie on one of these units, because they will do exactly the same. They will create an electromagnetic field, and within a very, very narrow frequency intensity range, and our ions inside us, they understand that, and they will start moving, and that increases and improves the membrane potential of each of your 70 trillion cells. And the next good message is, and we know all that from research, if you do that for at least 8 minutes and then you stop it, the effect will last up to 4 to 6 hours. That's remarkable. That's powerful. So what I'm telling you is, you do your therapeutic 8 minutes, and your body takes it over and provides a therapy for the next 4 to 6 hours. That's exactly what it does. And that's why we hear all these stories. You know, because between you and me, this system doesn't care what your disease is. This system is not made to treat a particular disease. This system is made to make sure that each of your 70 trillion cells runs at the highest possible level. And that's powerful. It is the most fundamental treatment modality out of energy medicine which is available on this planet till today. Who knows what's come tomorrow? But till today, nothing is better and nothing is more efficient than PMF therapy. You know? And this is the principle how it works. Nothing less and nothing more. And the mystery of PMF device and the knowledge and know-how of PMF devices is to know and to understand which information with which volume has to be applied, that each of your 70 trillion cells gives you the best response. Does it make sense to you? Mm-hmm. That's what PMF systems do. The IMRS, we have two systems. Here we have our flagship product, the IMRS Prime. Here we have our product which you can take anywhere you want. That's PMF to go, the Omnium One. They are capable of initiating, supporting, and maintaining all fundamental metabolic processes. And don't forget, every disease, every health effect starts and evolves from your smallest intelligent building block, which is the human cell. A lot of these cells together in an intelligent way, they create tissue. A lot of these tissues together in an intelligent way, they create an organ. And a lot of these organs together in an intelligent way create the organ system. What you see here in front of you and what I see in front of me. So, and if you, and now think about it, you learned so much that you will even understand what I'm telling you now. Because if you keep your cell healthier, you also extend and prolong the process until the cell divides again. We have in the DNA, it's already programmed how many times your cell is capable of dying and reproducing itself. If you postpone every cycle in between to a certain time frame, then we speak about anti-aging. Because every cell has a limited lifespan, you know, and the lifespan is limited by the limit amount, how many times it reproduces itself until it finally dies. You know, and if we see wrinkles today in the mirror when we wake up, it's nothing else. Those are areas in the skin where more cells die than can be reproduced. So the longer we prolong that, you know, the more we do for this ever desired anti-aging, and PMF helps you with that. You know. And all you need to do is lie down. If you're not willing to invest these efforts, you don't deserve it. Just quickly, almost done. The difference between, there are so many PMF devices now out, you know. But there is only one system in this entire world which is still so efficient, so much more efficient. Obviously, it's our system. Otherwise, I would not mention this. And why? Because this is, by the way, how it would look like if we could make these vibrations visible, so that you get a little bit of an impression how it feels, or how your cells feel when you lie on such a whole body mat. You are more or less surrounded by electromagnetic fields, you know. Some people feel them, literally, because sometimes they trigger tingling in certain areas of the body. Sometimes they trigger heat because PMF improves circulation. So that means your body temperature at certain areas of your body, it will rise, and you will definitely feel that through your heat sensors. But that's more or less it. You know, you don't get an electric shock every second, so don't worry. You know, it's very gentle. You will not feel that in a negative way. What you can see here, if you look very close to this picture, you can see that the intensity of the exposed electromagnetic field is weaker at the head-neck area and increases towards the feet. Can you see that? Here the field is stronger. And this is something only we created with our applicators, because we said, that's why we are called SwissBionic, because bionic means nothing else. We learn from nature and we transfer that into technology. And from nature we learned that when we move over our planet and we receive the electromagnetic field of the Earth, that it is stronger at the feet and weaker at the head. This is the natural way how we receive it. And that's why the applicator design enables the system to create weaker fields towards the head-neck area and stronger fields towards the legs and the feet. And the second animation here, I just go back. This is a normal sine wave. Remember when I said it would be very, very time consuming if you always would have to introduce one information at a time. 1 Hertz for 10 seconds, 2 Hertz for 10 seconds, 3 Hertz for 10 seconds. Would take forever to do a PEMF application. What we do is, this is high technology. We created a waveform which is available in physics. It's called a sawtooth waveform. You can also Google that. You will find something interesting about that. You know, this waveform has the capability of creating more than one frequency at the same time. Those are the so-called harmonics. You know, bundle them and then transfer them within one cycle. You know, we call them pulse packages. So we literally put them into a bowl, and then we supply them towards the receiver, which is our body, in one cycle. And what we achieve with this, that we can literally transport many more information at the same time, comparing to one frequency at a time. And this is very sophisticated knowledge, and those systems from SwissBionic are the only in the world which are capable of doing that. The idea behind this is saving time and increasing efficiency. That's the background of it. This is a very good video. I want to show you this, how resonance works. So those are, you know what a metronome is, right? So those two guys, they randomly start all these metronomes. They started this one first. And as you can see, those metronomes, they are not on a solid surface. They are on a hanging, on a free vibrating surface. And now imagine, those are all your cells. They are embedded in your so-called interstitial fluid, that's the water between your cells. And this is the PEMF device. And the PEMF device starts giving the tax for the frequency. And now look what happens all the time. It takes about 2 minutes, and then you will figure out that all these metronomes, they will resonate with the same frequency of this one. You know, we call that resonance. They resonate with this frequency. This is exactly what happens when you lie on the PEMF device. We give you a frequency and we try to force each of your cells to tune into that frequency and take it over. Not everyone at the same time, but slowly, you know, they are coming they tune in. And you can also see, it also strengthens the vibration of the surface. That's the bridge effect. You heard about that. When 1,000 soldiers go over a bridge with the same frequency, it will eventually collapse. That's the same principle. And you can even see how the vibration is increasing. But of course, there's always this one guy. You see him? I don't want that, you know? I insist. You know?
But everyone you do, they'll learn and first and follow that.
Exactly. But just a question of time. No chance. That also should illustrate you that not every cell is immediately resonated, and it takes some time. But also it doesn't take forever. And that's why it makes no sense to rely on this system for longer than 8 or 24 minutes. Because after that time, your cells already resonate. And then, now what happens, I could stop that. What would happen? The other will still vibrate. You know? So after 8 minutes, I turn my machine off, get up from the whole body mat, and go back to work. They are still running. 4 to 6 hours. It's pretty cool stuff. I was waiting for that question. Thank you very much. Can you overdo? Can you do too much? No, you can't. Because what? Guess what? When the cell got the information and is satisfied, it will tell the PEMF device, you can talk to me whatever you want, you know? I'm done with it, you know? So, no, you cannot overdo it. And you can harm yourself. You cannot harm yourself because once the cell has enough, it shuts down, you know? Similar to women. You know? If you argue with a woman, it works to a certain stage and then it just doesn't work anymore because there is no resonance anymore. You know?
Because we're always right.
Yeah, because and that's for sure. You know, I mean, that's every law should start with this, no matter which one. You know, paragraph 1.
So does that mean I'll cycle with my wife?
Pardon?
So does that mean I'll cycle with my wife?
Well, yeah. I leave it up to you.
Right.
Yeah. I won't answer this question, you know, because I see already there is a storm coming up from the left side. No, but yeah, but you understand, huh? That's energy medicine. It's so cool. You can do so much good things without even knowing it, you know? Did it ever happen to you that you enter a room and you don't feel comfortable in that room? And you don't know why? It's energy. You are not resonating with the color of the carpet, with him or her, with the, I don't know, whatever. You cannot manifest it, but you don't feel comfortable. You know? And the opposite is, you walk on the street, and there she is. Bang! You fell in love. You know? How can you explain that? That's energy. It's energy. There must be an interaction of something, you know, which is not understood yet in Newton's physics because it's not proven. In quantum physics, it is already proven. It's the so-called quarks. The quarks are these little tiny energy atoms, and we emit and receive them constantly. And we seem to be equipped with senses which we don't know consciously that we have them, but we seem to react on them. Because otherwise you would never be able to explain love and hate. Impossible. You know? Or sympathy and the opposite of it. This is energy. This is energy medicine. You know? My goal is always when I do a speech, I go in a room where all the people sit and say, okay, let's see what he talks to me. You know, okay, yeah. Show me the studies. You know, I have to turn that into some positive energy, and you either resonate with it or you pack and go. You know, that's, you know, and this is something, it's so stupid and simple, but it's so powerful in the same time. Think about that. Yeah. So that's more or less it. If you, of course, would like to have more information about the units, you can talk to Diane and the people supporting her on this beautiful afternoon. I just need to close this because somebody sent me this today. Sorry, but I need to. Hold on. You know, there is a German manager. He's working for Mercedes-Benz in China. He's a very clever guy, and he's an IT specialist and a really good manager with also good managing skills. But also he's also a cool human being. And remember when we talked about product design. What I want to share with you is that people always approach me and said, "Why didn't you, why didn't you use that shape of this applicator and this and that? Why didn't you make it bigger? Why did you, all these questions, which you more or less, it's very difficult to answer those questions, but I can tell you there is always a reason behind. When you design something, you think about something. You put your thoughts inside. And then you are limited from external stuff like how many units go on a pallet when you send them in a 40-foot container from Switzerland to USA. But he posted something. I need to. It's a little story. Are you ready for that? Okay, listen. Okay. The US standard railroad gauge, it's the distance between the rails, is 4 feet, 8.5 inches. That's an exceedingly odd number, right? Why was that gauge used? Well, because that's the way they built them in England. And English engineers designed the first US railroads. Why did the English build them like that? Because the first rail lines were built by the same people who built the wagon tramways, and that's the gauge they used. So why did they use the gauge then? Because the people who built the tramways used the same jigs and tools that they had used for building wagons, which used that same wheel spacing. So why did the wagons have that particular odd wheel spacing? Well, if they tried to use any other spacing, the wagon wheels would break more often on some of the old long-distance roads in England. You see, that's the spacing of the wheel ruts. So who built those old rutted roads? Imperial Rome built the first long-distance roads in Europe, including England, for their legions. Those roads have been used ever since. And what about the ruts in the roads? Roman war chariots formed the initial ruts, which everyone else had to match or run the risk of destroying their wagon wheels. Since the chariots were made for Imperial Rome, they were all alike in the matter of wheel spacing. Therefore, the United States standard railroad gauge of 4 feet, 8.5 inches is derived from the original specifications for an Imperial Roman war chariot. Bureaucracies live forever. So, the next time you are handed a specification, a procedure or a process, and wonder what horse's ass came up with this, and now listen, you may be exactly right. Imperial Roman army chariots were made just wide enough to accommodate the rear ends of 2 horses. 2 horses' asses. Okay, and now the twist to the story. When you see a space shuttle sitting on its launch pad, there are 2 big booster rockets attached to the sides of the main fuel tank. These are solid rocket boosters, or so-called SRBs. The SRBs are made by the company Thiokol at their factory in Utah. The engineers who designed the SRBs would have preferred to make them a bit fatter, but the SRBs had to be shipped by train from the factory to the launch site. The railroad line from the factory happens to run through a tunnel in the mountains. And the SRBs had to fit through that tunnel. The tunnel is slightly wider than the railroad track. And the railroad track, as you know now, is about as wide as 2 horses behind. So, a major space shuttle design feature of what is arguably